Hello and welcome back for another Teen Steam Grab and Go kit. Although to be honest, this month isn't too steamy or STEMmy, it's mostly just art. I've been doing a lot of these and I'm starting to run out of ideas here. So we are going to make a decorative little bear using magazines. So if you picked up your kit, you will have gotten a bag full of little squares from a magazine and a cutout of a bear. If you didn't get a kit, well, this isn't too crazy to get. You can just take a whole bunch of magazines and cut squares out of them, and then pick your own animal and do a little cutout. I did use cardstock for these just to give it a little bit of thickness for it. So other materials that you're going to need will be tape, like a Scotch tape. You'll need a pair of scissors, and you'll need some glue. I'm going to use mostly the white glue or Elmer's glue. You can use super glue, just remember, or crazy glue, just remember it's going to get everywhere. So have something like on the table. If you have extra like latex gloves, put those on because this stuff gets everywhere. It's a little bit messy, but it does give it a good effect. So that's what you're going to need, and now I'll get started on showing you how to make it. Okay, to get started, we need to take our squares and roll them into small cylinders. So one thing you want to keep an eye on is what's on the squares on each side. If there's like text, so like this one has a lot of text. Now I can roll this into a little cylinder and have all the text come out of it. So that could be like an effect if you just want like a lot of text and maybe like a little bit of color. You might want to have something like that where it's just the text. But ideally you would look at it and say, well, the color's on this side here, so I want to roll it so that this is the end side here, so that when it's rolled, you'll see all of the color on the end there. So what I like to do is I like to just do a fold about 1/4 of an inch or so, and then I fold it in half again and start rolling it. That gives me a nice tight roll. You really want nice tight rolls for these. You don't want it to be too big, because then it gets a little bit loose. It's not as good. So you want to roll these up like this. So now that it's rolled, you'll see that it's just the colorful side of it. And once that's done, I just take a little bit of tape here, and I put some tape in the center just to keep it from unraveling. So we're going to do that with all the paper. So I'm going to do that with this piece next. So this one has a couple different colorful sides. It's like from food. So I'm going to use this side because it's got a whole lot of color over there. So I'm going to flip it over and put the side that I want to see on the edge or away from me. And then do one fold about 1/4 of an inch, and then start another smaller fold in there and start rolling. And once it's rolled, take a little bit of tape and tape it in the center here. So that you have nice little rolls like that. You do want to try to keep them as even as you can. I know it's not too easy, but just work on that. So now you can pause the video. I'm going to just finish rolling up all of my pieces, and I'll come back when that's all done. Okay, so now all of my magazines are rolled up into these little tubes. So now what I'm going to do is just kind of like lay them out just to see how they look on the bear. I also put a piece, you should have a couple pieces of like wax paper. So I taped one piece down to put the bear on it, because we're going to start gluing, and you don't want to get glue all over the place, because then your parents are going to get mad. So try not to do that. So now I'm just going to kind of set these up. So one thing that you want to do is look at like the edges and the ends of your bear. You don't want to, because you're going to cut these out around it, but you don't want to have like too much excess kind of hanging off. So I'm just going to set a few up Um, and you also don't want to put anything over the feet yet. Not yet. Um, I'm just kind of setting things up just to give myself an idea of what this is gonna look like. Using some different thicknesses and sizes here and there just to see how it comes out. So I'm just gonna lay out about 5 of these on one side, and then I'm gonna do a few at the nose. So I'm going to do about this many here, and then I'm just going to do the same thing on the nose here. So the nose is kind of small, but alright, I'm just going to start laying it out anyways. So the small parts, if you want to, you can just put like part of it over, because you're going to cut these off, so you can save the excess to use at another spot. So I'm just going to do a few over the head and the nose here. I think I'm going to set up like that. So now I have an idea of what I want to go where. So I'm just going to push these forward and just use some glue. So I'm going to use white glue. It takes longer to dry, but it's just a little bit cleaner to do this with. You can use like a crazy glue. You can use crazy glue. It does dry faster. It's just messier and it gets over your hands. So if you do use crazy glue, try to find some like latex gloves if you have some left over. Use some latex gloves. You can try a glue gun. I did that at first and it didn't really work out too well in my favor. So I'm not going to use a glue gun again. It just didn't, stuff didn't really stick all that well. So I'm just not a fan of using a glue gun for this. So now I'm just going to set them on. Trying to be careful. Also be mindful of where like the bottoms are. You want to, or these edges. You want the edges to be kind of on the bottom. That way they don't like come out. You know. Many. All right. So same thing. Just making sure that the ends are towards the bottom here, and trying my best to use um, only a little bit to cover up the nose here. That way I can use some of these excess pieces for some smaller parts in the future. Alright, so now that I've got that, I'm going to take my other piece of wax paper here. I'm going to lay it over the top. You do not want to do the whole thing at once. So I'm going to just lay a piece of paper on top, take a book, and put it on the top and let that sit for about 15-20 minutes. So the idea is, so next we're going to start cutting these off around here. And if you do the whole thing, I found it really difficult the first time I tried this to cut off all of them when the whole thing was done. So that's why I'm just doing this in short sections like this. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes. So now I'm going to, well, hopefully this is nice and dry. So this is paper that we're doing this on, so it might bleed through a little bit. So just be very careful picking it up. But now that it is mostly dry, hopefully dry, somewhat dry, whatever, I'm going to start cutting off. So using the back side of this, I'm going to cut off so that it's around the shape of this bear template. I do want to save some of these longer pieces though, because these could be useful in the future. Smaller ones, maybe not so much. should look like this. I don't know if any of that made it on camera. I'm sorry, I was focusing so much on the cuts. But it should look something like this at the end. You can see it's starting to take shape. So now I'm going to continue doing pretty much the same thing. Find some pieces. So I do have some long pieces. I want to save these for like these long strips along, so I don't have to fill in too much. But I do want it to be nice and colorful, and mix up the colors a little bit too. Okay, so at this point you should have most of the bear filled in. I just haven't done the feet yet because they're pretty small, so it's a little tricky to get the feet done right. But I've slowly gone and put the tubes around from outside working inwards, gluing them down. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for some smaller pieces to use for the feet. So I have like I have a few here that I can use. I was saving off a lot of the cutoffs, or some of the cutoffs, so I have a few that I can use here. You want to make sure that the tape is done right. You don't want something where there's like not a lot, like only like a little bit of tape on one side. Like this one, there's like a little bit of tape here, so if I tried to get it down, it might just unravel itself. So I want to make sure that I have tape on enough of them as I'm picking out which ones to put on here. Yeah, I might not be able to cover up like the whole foot and toe part. I'm just gonna try to get as close as I can. Just because, like I said, they're very small. You really need to get a nice wide piece in there and get enough tape on there. So I'm going to just put a little bit more tape on this one to use. Actually, this one's a nice thickness. I might just cut it and use it twice. Alright, so now my glue is finished drying, so I can start cutting off the last little bits here. Hopefully they won't fall apart when I cut them off, because these are tiny little pieces we're dealing with. Yeah, I think one of them is about to fall off. I need a little bit more glue there. Let me finish cutting these real quick though. So I've gotten everything done here. So my piece is just about there. I just have to glue a couple little pieces on here at the end. But my one last little thing, so it's a little like wobbly. So I'm gonna take some glue and I'm gonna find wherever some spaces are, like wherever it kind of like bends. I'm just gonna put a little bit of glue in between some of these spaces. Like there's one over here. Might be good to do this with a toothpick. I should have thought of that before I started this. I'm going to take a little napkin. Wherever I put that glue in between the two, I'm going to just try to brush it off so it doesn't get too gunky. And now I'm just going to let it, the last time of letting it dry. But there's my bear. So I hope that you've enjoyed this project, and I hope that your bears all come out looking really nice. And if it gives you ideas, you know, you can always go online, find some other animals to try this with, and just get some magazines and cut them out and do them all yourself. Please remember to, if you can, to take some pictures and share them with us. I'd love to see the projects that you made, and I'll see you in another month.